Rarely have I ever had an apple pie that I didn't like. I love apple pie. I mean, apple pie is great, but how do you take your apple pie game up a level? You make the crust with little bitty miniature cinnamon rolls. That's what we're gonna do. We're making the cinnamon roll apple pie. For our cinnamon roll apple pie, we're gonna use a pie crust, a refrigerated pie crust. You need 2 of them, okay? Should be easy to unroll. If they're sticking as you unroll them, you need to let them warm up a little more. But see, this is easy. All right, so let's unroll it all the way out. And then we're gonna take our, we have butter. We have 2 tablespoons of butter. I've got it melted and we're gonna brush it on. Brush the butter over the entire pie crust, okay? All right, so use about half the butter here because we have another pie crust coming up to use. After the butter, we're gonna take cinnamon. I've got about 3 teaspoons and we were working with 2 crusts, so I'm gonna use half of this and spread cinnamon all over. Make sure you spread the cinnamon evenly over the pie crust. Once the cinnamon is on the pie crust, we're gonna roll it up really tight, okay? Okay. We're gonna do the same thing with the other pie crust here. I'm gonna put this in a dish because once we finish with this crust, we are going to put it in the fridge. All right, so let's put them in the fridge for about 10 or 15 minutes. That's just gonna firm them up because we're gonna slice them really thin to make our little micro cinnamon rolls to start forming our crust, okay? So in the fridge for like 10 to 15 minutes. While the pie crusts are in the refrigerator, we're gonna work on our pie filling. We're gonna prepare the apples. We need 8 cups of Granny Smith apples. Let's peel them, core them, and thinly slice them, okay? I like using Granny Smith apples because they're crisp and they're tart, which works really well with all the cinnamon and sugar we're going to coat them with. We're going to combine our 8 cups of sliced apples with 3/4 a cup sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then last 3 tablespoons of flour. All right, so let's toss this together. That's gonna be our pie filling. All right, we have our apples nicely coated with our cinnamon and our sugar. So let's set this aside and we'll get the pie crust prepared. I've got one of our rolled pie crust out. We're gonna use this one to prepare the bottom of our pie crust. First thing, let's just trim off the edges so we get a nice cinnamon roll look on the ends. All right, so I want you to take little 1/4-inch cuts all along our little cinnamon roll log here. All right, so now we have a ton of little cinnamon rolls here, little tiny ones. We're gonna put these along the bottom of a greased baking dish. All right, so to grease it, I'm just gonna take some butter and run it all along the sides and the bottom. So now we're gonna take all these little cinnamon rolls and line the bottom and up the sides, and then we're gonna press it down firmly so we can start forming the pie crust. Just gives it such a cool look. Okay, so I've lined the pie dish with our little cinnamon rolls. Well, now we got to smush them down and make sure they spread out and cover the bottom and cover the sides. So use your fingertips and start squishing straight down the cinnamon rolls, and you'll see they spread out. And now you just have to work it out so that they cover the entire dish. All right, so that's the bottom of our pie. Now we can go ahead and put our apple filling in. Oh, these apples look fantastic. Cannot wait for you to try this. Now this is a tall pie, so stack the apples up. All right, I'm gonna stop there with my apples. I had some left over. So now we have to work on the top of the pie. We're gonna do the same thing with the other pie crust. We're gonna cut it into little 1/4-inch cinnamon rolls, but then we're gonna roll it out and make it wider so we can just blanket it on top of our pie. All right, here's our second crust. I'm gonna trim the little ends off here. All right, so now we'll start making our little 1/4-inch thick cinnamon rolls. All right, now let's get some parchment paper out. We're gonna lay down a piece of parchment paper and then put these in a big circle, put another piece of parchment paper on top, roll it out and make a big old blanket for the top of our pie. You can put a little bit of space in between them. So you can probably see what we're gonna do. We're gonna squish these down and make that big top layer of pie crust. We've got our little circle formed with mini cinnamon rolls. Let's get the second sheet of parchment paper. We're gonna put it on top. We'll take our rolling pin and we're gonna roll it out. It's got such a great look to it. All right, let's see what we have. And that's gonna be the top of our apple pie. So we're gonna put the top layer of crust on our pie. So we have to be very careful to take our crust off the parchment paper. Just lay it on top, peel it away. There we go. All right, so we want to make sure we press down the sides. I want to make sure I center this thing on top of the pie. Then press down the sides, and if you have any to trim, trim. Okay, so the edges are pushed down and sealed. I've got some of the extras trimmed away. Now let's brush with an egg wash. This is going to give it more of a golden brown finish as it bakes. All right, the last thing we do before we throw the pie into the oven, we're gonna cut a little X on top of our pie. Okay, it's ready for the oven. 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Look at this. What an awesome looking pie. And it tastes even better. Let your pie rest for about 30 minutes before you cut into it. If you're looking for the recipe, it's in the description of the video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up down below. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Ooh. Hey, if you make this, let me know in the comments. Send me a picture. I'd love to hear about it. It's our cinnamon roll apple pie.